ring if you're ready to care. Oh, let's talk power, let's talk speed. Hosted by the one and only WETOODEEP. Turn it up loud, feel the power in your seat. This is slapping me, yes, slapping me.
What is good, everyone? Welcome back to the Slapping Meat Community Show. And this episode is Fan Question Friday. So let's get into it. Let's just be honest. This episode almost didn't happen. WeTooDEEP asked the question. But when I went to bed last night, that was the only question. I wasn't going to get up and make a podcast just on that question, right? I was going to save it until I actually had questions. Well, I woke up this morning and rolled over, and Kara has saved this episode, gave me the questions that I need. Just to sort of explain, guys, this episode, Fan Question Friday, you only get a Friday episode if there are questions. So thankfully, Kara submitted some questions in the Discord for me to talk about. This is going to be fun. It's a mix of different topics. I like how she did this. We'll do that. We'll start with WeTooDEEP's questions into it. Was asked first. He asked, by the end of the year, will you let DJ WeTooDEEP come down and take you for a night on the town? Sure. But just some things you need to know. In this effort of taking me on a night for it, first off, you're coming to a city. If you want to take me out around Charlotte, now I'm not the type of person that goes for a night on the town. I'm sure you would do your research, but just understand you're taking someone who's no fun in these social segments. Like, I don't drink in public. I don't drink in public, right? The whole idea of going to the clubs and stuff is to have a good time, right? Drink, all that stuff. I don't do that. I like to have control of my functions and, right. But I also got to say, like, from my understanding, again, not my scene. From my understanding, we don't really have any really good clubs in Charlotte that I know of, that people have told me about. So, I mean, you can always come down here, and if you're paying, I'll go. But it's not going to be a good time for me, and it's probably not going to be a good time for you, because you're going to essentially, right? And so, if you want to come down and do all of that, if you're paying, I'll go. But that's how I'll answer that question, because I'm not a fun person to be out in social segments if your goal is to get messed up, and right, because I'm not that person, right? I don't drink in public places, especially if I have to drive at some point. Definitely not happening, right? I don't trust the drivers in Charlotte when I'm sober, so I'm definitely not, because that's a whole different story, right? But yeah, I mean, if you're paying, sure, come on down. Let me know. So we'll get into Kara's questions, because these are going to be the brunt of this episode, right? So so I like how she does this. She asks some questions about the last episode, and I like this concept of this is the type of things that when I ask for feedback and stuff like that, this is what I'm talking about. Let's address it. Let's go deeper into these topics. That's cool. All right, but the first question she asks is it super cringy to you that WWE is being treated like an actual sport on ESPN? I don't know about you, but I don't like listening about wrestling with my sports. 100% agree with you, Caro. In this atmosphere of ESPN is a sports network. This is This is where you'll get into the argument with the weirdos in the IWC that say that pro wrestling is a sport. It is not. It is an entertainment facet, right? Anyone outside of wrestling fans will tell you it's not a real sport. And I need to, like I can't imagine that there's a lot of people watching ESPN, watching Get Up. Like, I can't tell you how many times, it's Backlash week, so they're promoting the pay-per-view or the PLE on ESPN. And I've gotten ESPN alerts every morning about Paul Heyman or Jacob Fatu or so on Get Up in the morning on ESPN. And I can't imagine waking up at 8 in the morning to get my daily dose of sports and freaking Paul Heyman's there or Jacob Fatu. Now, Jacob Fatu is cool, right? Or Danhausen shows up. Danhausen was on First Take or something yesterday, doing something. Like, imagine watching your sports and that's on your TV mixed in with it. Like, I can't imagine I don't imagine a lot of wrestling fans care enough about WWE to have it on ESPN. It's cringy because it's not real, right? And you could tell by some of the people. That's why they go on the same shows, because I imagine not everyone at ESPN is happy to have to subject themselves to acting like what WWE is real life and trying to put Backlash on the same event as like the NHL playoffs, which are going on right now. Or there's some golf tournament that I'm sure could be talked about happening this weekend in Charlotte, where I live. It was all news because Drake May was here. Yes, today. I think he was playing yesterday, and like the celebrity edition for this tournament or whatever, right? Or we just had like the Kentucky Derby last weekend, and imagine like discussing that, and then the next thing you talk about is Danhausen. Like, it's just not real to do that, and I've been saying it since the ESPN deal came in, and all the casual fans are like, this is gonna be a next level added addition to the legitimacy of pro wrestling. And I'm like, no, it's just going to make it look dorkish, right? Like, the more you try to expose the business, the faker it becomes, right? Wrestling as a industry works best when it's able to preserve what it actually is, right? When you can preserve the illusion of reality in wrestling, and you don't have to force it upon people. It's just there. Like, wrestling in the 80s felt real because no one knew the inner workings of everything that happened, and you protected what it was, right? But we also know, like, 90% of the world knows that it's staged, and so treating pro wrestling like it's the UFC isn't going to work, because most of the people watching the programming are like, well, this stuff's staged. It's predetermined, even if they don't use the word fake, right? And so I don't know, giving that level of legitimacy, I think, hurts it. Like, ESPN's a joke of a station as it is, for just some of the mixing in politics with the sports that shouldn't be there, right? But that's most sports journalism now. That's most journalism now. Everything's looked through, like, political lenses when it shouldn't be. But then when you mix in, like, the WWE into it, like, it's absolutely crazy to assume that is on the same level. Like, I just can't imagine talking about, like, the latest football news and then having the turn and be like, and now our next guest is Danhausen. Like, that's just crazy to me. Not that Danhausen's not good, but Danhausen's good in the controlled environment known as WWE. When you take him out, and this has been my number one thing, like, as much as you can complain about how Vince McMahon booked and who Vince McMahon is and whether or not he did what he did with Janelle Grant or whatever, right? Vince McMahon's logic when it came to booking is, if it didn't, like, he treated WWE as its own universe, right? And so anything outside of WWE didn't exist. This is why if Vince McMahon was still in control, I don't think we get a lot of the celebrity interference that we've had. I mean, we'll get some to bring legitimacy to like a WrestleMania, but I don't think we would get, or I don't think we would get a lot of the, like, I don't think we get ESPN, WWE on ESPN. We may get like the business side of it on ESPN, but I don't think you send a lot of your characters there because Vince McMahon, not perfectly, but Vince McMahon treated his creations like they were just for his universe. Like, imagine seeing the Hulk show up on ESPN. First off, it's not possible because the Hulk is CGI, right? And so you wouldn't have that, right? Or imagine seeing like Superman in full costume show up on ESPN in character acting as Superman. Well, Superman's in a different universe, in a different world. And so it wouldn't make any sense. Well, that's the same thing here. WWE characters are characters in a different universe where ESPN isn't talking. Like that's what I've always been trying to say. That's my perspective on wrestling, is we should keep wrestling as a television show in its own universe. So Danhausen, the person Danhausen, right? So there's an actor who plays Danhausen. He exists in reality, but Danhausen, the gimmick, only exists in as far as WWE is concerned. And so Danhausen actually doesn't exist in reality. Danhausen exists in WWE land, right? Or universe, right? That's why, with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you could do things in that universe that aren't real and are imaginative and science fiction, like, say, Doctor Strange's whole sort of characters and what do they call it? I'm not big on MCU, but like other universes or multiverse. Yeah, the idea of like the multiverse theoretically is possible, but really hard to actually accomplish. But you can do that in the MCU because it's a cinematic universe. It's scripted. It's fake. It doesn't actually exist. And we used to keep those barriers there. We used to have those barriers of understanding in American culture, but specifically in wrestling as well, that, hey, some of the logic that happens in this universe isn't going to match, right? That's why we have a dead zombie motorcycle funeral director as our world champion, because things that happen in our universe, it's our universe, right? That's why we have a demon whose brother is the dead zombie motorcyclist funeral director. And at the same time, we have a clown that runs around, and then we have a tiny leprechaun who sits under the ring. We have Samoans. We have a redneck who likes to beat up his boss. We have you get the point that I'm trying to say, right? We have a cop in the Big Boss Man. We right. That's why, first off, I'm very big on gimmicks, because gimmicks make characters, and characters are what actually get over in TV and TV shows. But also, that's why I've always been for example, right, during the COVID era, we had like the Thunderdome, right, or whatever they called it, and I always said, like, they should go cinematic and make this very entertaining, like Lucha Underground style. Like, here's the WWE. Like, that's why I'm so big on. I just realized, by the way, while I'm recording this, I forgot to do season 10 of WETOODEEP Pro Wrestling. We'll get to that next week. A lot of things have happened this week. We'll get to it next week. I ain't got time for that. But that's why, like, if I were to ever run my own wrestling promotion and have a show with it, it would be a universe, right? And everyone would need a character. Everyone would need a gimmick. It makes it more entertaining, but, right? And it also, like, that's what wrestling is. And so wrestling on ESPN absolutely is corny. I feel like I'm beating the dead horse here, and I'm trying not to do that. I got feedback from Wavy D that, bro, you beat that. Basically, he didn't say it in these words, but he essentially said, bro, you beat the brakes off of this dead horse. Over one of the topics last Friday. So we're gonna move on. So this next section, I loved how Kara does it. She says, I want to give some of my opinions on the topics you talked about on the show on Wednesday. And I want to see if you, WETOODEEP, if you agree or disagree with. So she starts with the video game at the very end of the show, right? Where I asked you guys, what do you think about this post? This person said about men, grown adult men who play video games being unattractive to women. And so let's just go into it. Do I agree or disagree? First statement, she says, in my opinions, if they're not super obsessed or abusive, I'm okay if my man wants to play video games or do anything nerdy. I won't think less of him. So I think that there's a line here. Absolutely. So first off, I don't think she says think less of these men. I don't necessarily think what she meant in her post was these guys are human trash. That's not what she meant. What she meant was that by abdicating, again, you got to read the post as she wrote it. She says, those who play hours at a time. So it assumes that it has become part of their personality. Now, video games are not wrong, right? I just spanked the Angels on MLB 25 last night. Spanked them. Beat them real bad. But I think the issue what she's pointing out is these people who spend 6 to 10 hours a day, and in doing so, abdicate all of their responsibility. Either they don't, because this comes down to another question, another opinion she gives. So I don't want to go too deep on this point, which is either they don't have a job, therefore they're not paying, or they don't have income coming in to take care of themselves. So most of the time, these people that she's talking about live with their parents. Now, there's nothing wrong with living with your parents. I mean, honestly, in this economy, I live with my parents. There's nothing wrong with that. If there's nothing wrong with that, if that's your situation, I just got paid today, right? I still have income coming in. I just can't afford to live in this economy, right? And so, with that being said, that's what I think she's talking about. And she's not saying they're worthless. She's just saying they're not no woman will find that particular person who spends 6 to 10 hours a day, abdicates their responsibility, doesn't take care of what needs to be done as a man, and that's not attractive to women. And I genuinely understand that point. But at the same time, I agree with Kara in a way that if someone wants to have a hobby like this that may be considered nerdy or whatever, sure, don't think less of them. But I don't think that was necessarily the point of the post. The point of the post was, is this attractive to, right? Because a lot of these men are single, living with their parents, on the video game 6 to 10 hours a day, have no motivation, have no drive to want to be better, right? And I think if we think from a more, again, she's a conservative Christian, and I'll say this, influencer. She obviously made this post for clicks. I think a lot of people do so, right? Because that's part of my issue with getting into social media is I don't have the ability to just post everything that I think. If I posted everything that I thought, that would just be tiring. I don't have, I have troubles trying to figure out what I what I should put. Should I post this? Because I don't find myself to be uber creative in random thought. People just be posting things, and so yeah. But yeah, so she obviously posted this to be seen. That's fine, and she did get seen, and well over 12 million views, I think that tweet was at, and in the follow up. I don't know if I don't think she's being paid by Elon, but if she was, she would be getting a nice check from these from this opinion. And that was the point, to expose, because what she did was expose how uncomfortable this topic makes people. Which is why in the episode on Wednesday I said it obviously has become an idol in our culture that needs to be smashed. Because it makes so many people uncomfortable to say, hey, men, you can have hobbies, you can relax if you're taking care of your responsibilities. But she was addressing a post to men who are obviously abdicating those responsibilities and not taking care of them. That's what I believe she was talking about. Which then brings us to her next opinion on that topic. Video game players do make a lot of money streaming online. If her guy was making bank, I promise she would not have a problem with it. Sure. But I just want to, I don't know the stats off the top of my head. But not every single person is making, first off, not every person is a streamer, but second, not every streamer is making bank. I don't understand this. So there was this push as the rise of TikTok and YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels and all of these things, as all of these things started to rise during COVID, there was this push for everyone, and I, myself included, I'm not going to cut myself out of this, everyone thought that they could be a stream. Like, it's sort of like with the podcast push. Like, I guess I could put myself in this category, right? I think there's more productive things I could be doing than this. I do it because it's enjoyable, but I also take care of my business, right? I take care of the bills that I need to pay, right? So I don't think I'm in the same category she's talking about, but not everyone feels like they should be a podcaster or a streamer, and that they're going to make it. I came to the conclusion on the first episode of Slap and Meat, at the time was Slap and Meat Wrestling Podcast, right? And when I posted it, I knew I'm not big. I don't have a following. No one's probably going to listen to this, but we're going to keep doing it. And now we're at episode 351, and we're still in the same position. Not a lot of people listen, but we may make it. We may make it big. There's people who listen now, though, right? We may make it bigger, right? The problem is not everyone in that market is getting paid money. And so most of these people she's talking about aren't making bank. This idea, though, that if her guy did this, I don't know what her husband does, to be honest, but I don't think it's accurate to say that the target audience of the post also equals streamers who make tons of money. Because just like in the podcast world, in the streaming world, there's like a 1%, all the money is controlled by like the top 1% of streamers. Everyone outside of that is not getting paid nearly enough to survive off of. And so I don't agree with this statement that video game players make a lot of money, because it only really goes to like the top 1% in that market. Just like pretty much any other business or market that's internet related, whether you're a streamer, a YouTube reactor, a podcaster, a vlogger, whatever, right? The money is controlled by like the top 1 to 5% of that market. And so same thing with video game streaming. Like it's the top 5% of that market. Or even within like things like OnlyFans, right? Sure, a girl could set up an OnlyFans and make $50, $60 a month or whatever, and be like, yeah, I make money. No, but the big bucks, let's just go a little bit bigger. There are people who make $300, $400, $500, $1,000 a month doing OnlyFans, guys. They're nowhere near the top, but the concentrated amount of money is in the top. That's why like these people who do like fake accounts, top 1% of them, right? Because the money is only in the top 1% of that industry, right? And so I don't know, like I get it. I think your next point or your last point on this is actually very good, and we'll get to that in a second. Her third point on this video game topic is there are guys out there doing worse things. Let's be thankful he's not doing those things. So I agree there are worse things you can be doing. But I'm not a whataboutism person. I absolutely hate whataboutisms. And this is the sort of argument that a lot of the guys are using. But, okay, I'm not out there doing drugs. I'm not out there getting drunk. I'm not out there stealing or robbing or sleeping around. Okay, good for you. You have no moral high ground, though. Because the guy out there sleeping around, the guy out there getting high, the guy out there getting drunk every night is searching for the same high and the same coping mechanism that you use to be, and is the reason why you play video games 6 to 10. No one's being productive. There's no moral high ground here. Just because you're not out there doing something that's a little bit more dangerous, right? Like, I get the point. I'm not being stupid, right? And again, I'm not against video games in moderation. The point to all this is alcohol is not bad. Getting drunk every night is. Why? The key is moderation. I don't personally think that, well, I have differing opinions now. If you would have asked me about 5 to 10 years ago, closer to 5, my thoughts on drugs, I was in a weird anarchy phase, anarcho-capitalist, where like, free market, if there's a market for it, let it be free. Like, and so I would justify like legalizing heroin and cocaine. That's crazy, right? I'm not that same person anymore. I have a very, like, I used to be very pro, like, oh, marijuana's not bad. I'm very anti-marijuana now. Like we have statistics now on marijuana that shows that all of these pushes to make it legal, first off, aren't as financially beneficial as we were told it would be. But also the effects of marijuana, long-term usage from these stoners, these effects are coming out on what it does to people. And yeah, but the whole point is, my answer is, while I agree with the statement, there are worse things that could be done, I disagree with the premise that is trying to be asserted by that, which is, that video games are somehow on a different level. They're still searching for something to cope from whatever their issues are, right? Because let's just be honest, someone who plays video games 6 to 10 hours a day and they don't have motivation to do something productive, I think is trying to cope from something, right? That's just my opinion, right? And again, I look at things from a productive state. Like, I know people who can get drunk and still be productive. Now, the getting drunk part is not productive. The hobby's not productive. Right? I also don't think that, like, the more dangerous something becomes, the less, I don't know, it's a weird, like, you could go out and, I don't know, I just feel like video games, like, what's different about video games than going to the bar and getting drunk, or getting drunk in your house, or whatever you do? Like, there are people who just sit at home, get drunk every single night. They don't do anything. What's different to that than playing video games? Don't go outside, not in community, not building anything productive. At the end of the day, that when you beat the game's over. There's nothing else to come from it. Right? You see what I'm saying? Like, it's not productive. And that's the point that the post was trying to get at. Is it's not attractive because no one's being productive. Right? Now, her last point, I like this point, though. She could say that about any other activity. Agreed. But objectively, someone can say the same thing about her hobbies. She probably made a statement based on an anecdotal experience. Maybe. I think this could be, maybe I had a bad experience. It could be. But I also think we have to understand, like I said, where she's coming from. She's coming from a more conservative, reformed Christian perspective. Sort of the same perspective I come from, like reformed, Christian, conservative perspective. Now, I personally am at the, like, I would have never made this post because I just don't think it's that important in the world, right? I think we have a lot more important things, but she could argue, and I would agree with this argument from the lady who posted this. Like, if I would have come to her and said, is this really that important? She could turn around and say yes, because it's an idol we need to smash. And again, I would agree with that. It is an idol we need to smash. We are at a precipice in our culture where, so if I say things like, I would say big things like, well, the men in this country are just weak. Now, why? And what we could then break down why, and part of that is because we have these hobbies. Men have these hobbies now that are softer, weaker, more comfortable hobbies. And we talk about the lowering child bearing rate, the lowering of the marriage rate, and people are now getting married for the first time in their 30s rather than in their early 30s, mid 30s rather than their mid 20s. Like I explained on the last episode, the average first time home buyer age now is 41. There's a lot of other things in there other than just men are weak. That's an economy problem, but a lot of that is men are weak. And there's a phrase that you could say about history. Hard times create hard men, right? Hard men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. And it's a cycle. And we are at the precipice of the hard men creating good times. And we've had good times were created in the 80s, right? Right? We had hard times in the Great Depression. That created a generation of Americans that went to work, put their boots on, didn't complain, rebuild America up from the Great Depression. So we created good times. Well, what did that good time, or what did those good times, what did that prosperity in the 40s and 50s create? It created the hippie movement, right? Of the 60s and the 70s, right? And we had good times even into the 80s. But what did that then create? We had technology expanding and all of that into the 90s, right? Well, what did that create? It created a generation, we're looking at the millennial generation now, that were softer, less disciplined, right? And as a generalized statement, right? Not every single person in that generation can be described by that, but as a generalized statement, the millennial generation were softer, weaker, and because of that, good times create weak men. Now we're entering into what I believe could be hard time. Like, I don't think people realize this. The economy we are currently in is being held up by this fake money. Like, our economy is worse than the Great Depression right now, based on inflation and all of that. Like, if this bubble that is pretending to hold it up, like there's fake money, this fake bubble that's the illusion that we're doing okay. If that burst and everything crashed today, we are in worse circumstances than the Great Depression economically, right? And so we're not doing good as a country. And I think it's a result of, like, there was the Great Depression happened because of the weakness of the Roaring 20s were good and men got weak. Plus, now I don't want to say that because a lot of them went to war, but there was good times and men got weak. And the Great Depression really happened because the weak men in government imposed measures that essentially created the Great Depression. But the point that I'm trying to say is, I don't necessarily think that this idea that she must have had a bad experience. No, I think she's just describing culture. And we have a generation of weak men who would rather cosplay, watch anime, or play video games. Not that any of those things are wrong, but I know people personally in my life who have spent thousands of dollars on building a gaming room, with computers and systems, and I need these processors, and I gotta build the best PC, and that's just not productive. It doesn't do anything for you, right? And so and you could say that about me doing this podcast, and I thoroughly will accept that criticism. This isn't necessarily the most productive thing that I could be doing right now. But I don't. So my criticism is those who don't take care of their responsibilities, and so I take care of my responsibilities for the most part. Because because the danger of this woman, Lizzie, who I thoroughly respect, the danger of her statement is, well, then men can never do anything and they have to work 3 jobs to take care of their like, I'm not working 3 jobs. First off, there's no time in the day for me to do that. Even if I stop doing everything extracurricular, my current work schedule from 9 to 6 every day, like no second job is going to hire me to work from 7 o'clock to closing time, because closing time, that's like 3 hours of work. No one's going to do that, right? And so it's crazy. But I don't know if I would agree that this is an anecdotal experience that she had. I think she's just describing what she feels is the problem with culture, and this is one of those areas where people aren't allowed, like, and you see, you're not allowed to touch this. And so at that point, it's become an idol. If you're not allowed to question the usage of something, at that point, it's become an idol. And it's got to be something, like, we should be able to have these type of conversations without the overall reaction being, she's been called some names. She's lost some followers over this. Like, that's not productive conversation. And it means she's touching a sacred cow, right? So that's where I'm at. Kara then expresses an opinion on my rant on gas prices. And so her opinion, it's not Trump's fault for gas prices rising. It's the state's fault. Over here in California, our state tax on gas is 40.6 cents a gallon, while the federal is 18.2 cents a gallon. Not to mention the built-in cost for additives in our gas. We need to hold our people accountable. So my goal of that rant wasn't just to place all the blame on Trump, 100%, because I know it's not just him. So I will agree with your assessment that first off, the state tax on products, that's crazy. Like, I think we need to have a legitimate conversation on, if you're paying 40 cents a gallon, let me ask you this question, Kara. Are your roads good? Because that's what that's supposed to go for. That 40 cents per gallon state tax in California, that's supposed to go to your roads and your government buildings and making sure that resources and your police are well taken care of. That's what that's supposed. I'm going to just go out on a limb and say your roads aren't that good. Your police force could use some more funding. I'm just going to assume that 40 cents a gallon isn't going where it's supposed to go. So we have to have that conversation. So yes, I do think state taxes play a role in it. My bigger question, though, is in that rant was the cost of crude oil per barrel. It just went down yesterday. It's like $78 per barrel, which is pretty low. It's very low. So why aren't the prices reflecting how cheap it is to get this oil? And that was where my rant is at. So I think a lot of that has to go. I think there's multiple places you can place blame at. From the gas tax percentage of the states to Trump to these companies that are definitely price gouging. But they're only allowed to price gouge because there's this illusion we have a war going on. My major point of why I place a lot of blame on this on Trump is we should have never interfered in the Middle East without some sort of plan. Like, that's why I mentioned, like, if we're being honest, if I have to give credit, the way Trump went about this was pretty smart. If it was on paper, if it went the way it should have gone, which was he took over Venezuela. He took control of their oil fields, cutting China off from them. He then goes to Iran and essentially does the same thing, keeping China off of them. And so now we can sell our gas to other countries that depended on those two countries, right? And we make money. But that doesn't affect, okay, maybe we can cut down some national debt there. But that doesn't affect, in reality, that doesn't affect the common person who has to fill up his tank. Like, so Circle K ran a promotion yesterday for 40% off, 40 cents off per gallon of gas, right? From, I think it was like 7 a.m. till 7 p.m., right? That you could get 40 cents off per gallon. So I had to fill up anyway. I fill up on Thursdays. And even with that 40 cents off, I still paid $45. Where 2 months ago, I was paying $20 a gallon. Or not a gallon, $20 a tank. I was paying $20 to fill up my car every week. And now I'm paying $45 every week. In 2 months difference. Like, that's what I was complaining about. And so maybe we could blame it on the companies who are price gouging, but they're only allowed to price gouge because there's this understanding that there's a war or a quasi-war, or this understanding that there's something going on in the Middle East, and that's why they're price gouging. So sure, maybe we need to do something about the price gouging and the gas taxes. And sure, it's not all. I'll agree that it's not all Trump's fault, right? But I think at some point we have to hold him accountable for getting us in this situation of whatever he did in the Middle East, right? So that's just where I'm at with it. I don't think there's one particular person to place the blame on. There's multiple. And so I'll agree with your statement that gas taxes are crazy, especially since they don't go to where they're supposed to go. Next question she asked: TKO will be the death of WWE if this run continues. I disagree. Disagree with this question, with this statement. Here's why. I don't think TKO is running the company for much longer. I think TKO took hold of a company that they thought would be a good addition to their portfolio. And then they came in, they were going to try to make their money back. And then I've always thought that they were going to sell as soon as they make their money back. Because that's what so Endeavor is a investment firm, right? Essentially, it's like we buy companies based on their IP, essentially. That's why they have IMG Academy and all of these things, right? And so I think within the next 2 to 3 years, we may start hearing rumors of Endeavor, the parent company, trying to sell TKO as a whole. I don't think they want UFC anymore. I don't think they want WWE. So I think within the next 2 to 3 years, I could genuinely see Endeavor selling the company. And at that point, I'm just going to be honest, I think the Saudis buy it. Because they're going to be the only ones who could probably pay the price they're going to ask for it. And that's why I've been saying that the pricing strategy of we're going to try to do pay cuts at from a payroll perspective, but we're going to raise the prices of everything. I've always said that was their strategy, was to come in, add some perceived benefit to the company, because that's what companies do. Like, I don't work for this company anymore, so I'll talk about it. But a company I worked for, and when I first got into storage, their strategy, their business strategy was, we'll buy a mom and pop storage facility. The property I worked at, I'll just go with that, had 200 storage units. Mom and pop, they were renting units for like $30 to $50 a month, right? They weren't making a lot of money per month on this, right? It was just a side income for this older couple, right? So the company I worked for came in, paid them $2 million, I think was the number that I heard that they paid. Said, here's $2 million, sell us your property. Well, now they have to make this $2 million back. And so what do? Well, they jack the prices up. So people who were paying $50 a month for a 10 by 10 storage unit are now paying like $150 a month. Within a year or two, they don't do it all at once, but within a year or two, now they're paying $150, right? We're talking like 300% increase in 2 years. And then what else do? Well, they add some perceived value to the property. What is that? They add a climate control building. So that what was 200 units that they bought, they now doubled that by adding a climate control building that had about 250 plus units in that building. And so now a 200 unit property becomes close to a 500 unit property, right? And then once you get all of that rented up, you then go to market with it and say, we have a property we bought at 200 units for $2 million. We added a building. We filled the building for you. You're at 90%, let's say, total occupancy. This is the revenue we make every year at this rate. We want $4 million for it, right? Or something like that, right? So not only are they earning money back from actually running the property for the 5 or 6 years they run it, but then when they go to market to sell it, we added this value with this new building and filled it for you. We want $4, $5, $6 million. They're going to earn their money plus some back in selling the property. And that's the strategy they imposed, right? And I think that's what TKO is going to do. We'll buy it for $9 billion, which is what they bought it for. Add, I guess, some perceived value with ESPN or whatever, right? And now we'll sell it back. We'll sell it either back to Vince McMahon, which is why Vince is trying to partner with the Saudis, because Vince understands that he needs money to buy this back, because it's probably going to go for $11, $12, $13 billion. And so if Vince were to ever get control of the company again, that's the only route, is to go through the Saudis, right? That's where we're headed, right? WWE being sold and controlled by the Saudis. I hope y'all know that. It's either TKO and Endeavor run the company or the Saudis run the company. So I really want you to understand that. Because there's no other person that I can think of that would pay $13, $14 billion for TKO or WWE, right? So I don't think that they're going to hold it that long. But I also think if they do, I don't think it's going to be the death of WWE. Because they're still earning money. People are still willing to go. I think that, I don't know, it's difficult to predict what wrestling fans will do. Because I'm still under the general belief that most hardcore wrestling fans will go to anything that has wrestling in the marquee. I still have that belief. I get it. The product is not, I think we need to just sort of pump the brakes on this TKO is going to ruin the company thing. Is the product bad? Sure. Are some of the business practices bad? Sure. Not agreeing with what they're doing. But at the same time, I don't think it's like awful. Like, I don't think it's enough for people to stop watching. People are still going to watch. So I don't think it'll be the death. I don't think WWE can die. 100%. I think it's going to be one of those companies that just continue to go. I think that there's enough people who are willing to continue to pay to go to the shows and continue to pay to watch it that it'll stay afloat. I 100% agree with that. See, this says, now it's time for the fun questions. First, what's the weirdest food combo you actually like? Now, I need y'all to listen and not judge. All right, so I got two that people typically critique me when I say that they need to try it. And they're pretty much the same concept. And So we all love a good peanut butter and jelly. That's great. So I've actually gotten into this phase now of peanut butter and honey, because jelly's there to add the sweet element to the savory, salty of the peanut butter. That's why it works so well, because you mix savory and salty with sweet, which is why I like Reese's peanut butter, because you have the sweetness of the chocolate, and you see, which is also why I like peanut butter and Nutella. If you like Nutella, I'm not a huge fan of hazelnut or Nutella, but that's why they go together so well, because the pairing is essentially supposed to be something sweet to match the savoriness and the saltiness of the peanut butter, right? Well, we all love that. That's not a weird food combo, but I also love a good peanut butter and mayonnaise sandwich. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's the whitest thing you've probably ever heard in your life, and I'd agree. Try it before you knock it, though. Try it before you knock it. But I think the weirdest one, and that I get the most critique out of, is now down south. The reason I don't get a lot of looks on peanut butter and mayonnaise, because down south we do some weird things. You can either take it a step further and do peanut butter and mayonnaise and banana, right? I've seen people do that. But I think the weirdest one I get the most critique out when I say it, and I love this, is a peanut butter and pickle sandwich, right? Just peanut butter, lather on the peanut butter on each side of the bread, and slab on now I prefer pickle spears, or if you're gonna slice them. I don't like the small hamburger pickles on this. I like the longer. I don't know what they're called, but I actually like the longer slices, like you're slicing down the cucumber. Because I don't know if you know this, a pickle is a pickled cucumber. But anyway, I just want to make sure that's normal, right? That people understand that, because I saw a post the other day, we have pickled onions and pickled radishes and how come we've never pickled a cucumber? We have. It's just called a pickle. But anyway, it's actually probably the first thing that's ever been pickled. Anyway, but yeah, peanut butter and pickle, bro. Lather on that peanut butter on the bread. 2 or 3 slices of pickle. And just enjoy. Just enjoy. Yeah, that's great. That's great right there. Next thing she asks, what's something people assume about you that's wrong? This one's tough, because I think I'm very outgoing, and my personality shows. And so I don't think people have to assume a lot about me. But I think the one misconception people people who know me, or people who I talk to they sort of assume that because I'm so matter of fact and so heavy on the truth matters, that I'm not and I'm so I have my beliefs and I'm going to stand 10 toes deep in them. I think a lot of people believe that because I'm that way, that I'm not open-minded. And that's definitely wrong. I'm open, but my open-mindedness only goes so far. Because I have this belief, if you're completely open-minded, you're if you don't believe in anything with any level of zeal and ability to stand 10 toes down on it, you're never gonna believe in anything. Or let me say it this way: if you don't believe in anything, you'll believe everything. Does that make sense? It's sort of like saying, if nothing is true, or if everything is true, nothing is true. Same thing, right? So same thing. If you believe everything can be a possibility, and you're that open-minded, then nothing's actually a possibility, right? And so you have to be a little closed-minded. You can't be so open-minded your brain falls out, right? But that also goes to a whole different concept of how the brain and the mind are actually two different things. That's a psychological question and topic. I've actually covered that on the other podcast, the Christian podcast that I do on my other channel. If you want to listen to that, I'm not going to promote it here, but you can ask me for the link, and I will share it with you. So yeah, I just think people think that I'm closed-minded and I'm not open-minded to consider other options, and that's just not true. But when you bring me your opinion, you have to bring me facts, right? Because I believe, like, my belief system, I don't believe it as true unless there's actual factual evidence behind it, right? And so I need you to bring the evidence, and that's going to be on, if you're trying to change my mind, the burden of proof is on you. And in order for me to consider your point of view as a actual truth, and because what that means, because you can't have multiple truths, right? There's one truth. It's the truth. And so I believe in the truth, right? And so when you come at me and say I'm wrong, what you're saying is I'm believing a lie. Now, I don't want to believe a lie. So I need you to prove to me, if you're going to make that statement that I believe a lie, I need you to actually bring me the proof of what is true so that I can believe in the truth. Right? That's how conversations are supposed to work, by the way. Hey, you're wrong, and here's why. And if you can do that, I'm open-minded to listen to you all day long. But you're going to have to bring the truth in order for me to change my mind, right? She then asks, what's the best advice you've ever gotten? See, this is the thing. I don't get a lot of advice. I don't seek out a lot of advice. To be honest, I'm not one of those people that like to just listen to proverbs or wise sayings. I personally believe a lot of wisdom is gained through life experience, and you're going to have to actually, like, go through things in order to learn from them. I don't think you can be told something and just learn from it. That's just me, right? I think sometimes, I think there's issues there. Like, I think you can. Like, I think you can look at history and learn from it. But I think a lot of human experience is how you learn from things. That's just my opinion. I don't know, advice that I've been given. I don't know. I don't get a lot of advice. I don't seek out a lot of advice. I think the wisest thing I've ever been told is to not follow your gut. And I'm gonna explain to you why. You've heard that statement before. Just follow your gut. Trust your instincts. No, don't do that. Let me tell you why. The people who are telling you that have a false understanding of the nature of human beings. Right? The correct view is we're broken, bruh. Like, we were created in the image of our Creator, and we broke that. And now we have this thing called sin, or we can just call it human nature, that only seeks to do what's beneficial for me. It's selfish. It's broken. I want to be the God of my life. And so there's a verse, Jeremiah 17:9. It says, the heart of man is deceitful and desperately wicked. Who can understand it? So when someone tells you to trust your gut, right, and we need to understand, this is when the Bible says heart, it's not talking about the organ. It's talking about the inner man, the desires, the wants, the what we would call the mind. Again, if you want more details on that, how the mind is different than the brain, I have an episode I did on another podcast. We can go over that. Ask for the link. But and so the heart is desperately wicked. The mind, the gut is desperately wicked. It always chooses evil, which is why you never have to train a child to do bad. You ever held a toddler and you had like a fancy watch on and they try to take it off your wrist? There's a reason. There's an old pastor. He just passed away last year. He's my favorite pastor I've ever listened to. His name is WETOODEEP. You can still find a lot of his stuff on YouTube. He had a sermon he did on like the nature of man, where he talked about children, and he said the reason God made children small was if he made them already human size, they would kill you. He called them vipers and diapers. Like, you don't have to train a child to do wrong. They're going to try to grab the watch off your wrist, right? And if they were human-sized, they would murder you for the watch. Because their concept is the human nature concept. I just want what's best for me. This is why I believe, I was asked a question by someone, like, how come some people are psychopaths and some people aren't? And my response to that is, I said, in human nature, by the human nature, if we all followed our human nature, we would all be psychopaths. I believe we are all born innately to be selfish and only care about ourselves. Now, some of us are raised in context and circumstances and are nurtured in, good circumstances that teach us right from wrong. But left to our own devices, we only care about ourselves. That's why in the 4th grade, I thought it was cool to steal. Right? I'm not allowed to have this, but I really want this, so I'm just going to slip it in my pocket. And I almost got away with it, right? That's why, it's so easy, the temptation to want to cheat on, I didn't study for this test. I'm just going to cheat, right? That temptation's easy because that's human nature. We want to try to preserve ourselves. And so I think the best advice I've ever been given is to not trust my gut. Right? Because my gut is only trying to do what's best for me and but it may not be what's best for the situation. Right? My gut tells me every day, buy DoorDash. But guess what? Then you rack up bills, bruh. Then you rack up debt. Or you don't have money, or right now you can't pay your bills, right? Right? And so my human instinct, my gut at times tells me, hey, that's why crime exists, because people are following their instinct, following their gut. This seems good at this point, so I'm going to do it. And if people really believe that advice, by the way, hey, just follow your gut, follow your instincts. Then why are we complaining? Like now, I don't believe this. I just want to take that statement and that conclusion to its further extent. If we truly believe that we just need to follow our gut, what about the rapist who raped somebody? What about the FedEx driver who kidnapped the 7-year-old, right? Raped her and killed her. Maybe he was just following his gut. That's what his human instincts told him to do at that moment. But we see everyone now, rightfully so, saying, he should be killed. He should be hung. Like, my opinion, we've seen the evidence. It's been seen in court. He doesn't need to sit in death row for the next 30 years awaiting a retrial. He needs to be hung in the public square. That's just my personal opinion on that. But if the people are just going to tell everyone to follow their gut, maybe he was just following his gut. You see how bad that advice is, to follow your gut? You see? So the best advice I've ever been given is don't listen to your instinct, because it may not always be the best thing for you, right? And then the final question, finally, in the history of Slap and Meat community questions, no one has ever asked this, and it's time to pry the answer out of you, WETOODEEP. We all want to know, it's the most embarrassing song in your playlist. Now, I gotta be honest with you. This question made me laugh when I opened up my phone this morning. This question made me laugh. Just because we just had some serious questions. And we're gonna end on a fun one. I like this question. Because I don't think any of the songs that I typically listen to on a day in and day out basis are embarrassing. I also think in order to be an embarrassing song, you have to be embarrassed to listen to it. And there's not a single song on my playlist that I would be embarrassed to be seen jamming out to in public. But for the sake of the game, what might be the most embarrassing in my playlist is if I were to be embarrassed. We'll answer that. But I'm going to be honest. I'm going to give you my philosophy on this. I'm a type of person, I only listen to music that was made for me to listen to. Let me give you an example, right? Olivia Rodrigo is a great singer. I loved her in the Disney Channel High School Musical TV show they tried to make. Loved her in that. Great, right? She's a great singer. I don't listen to her music. I'm not the target audience. Taylor Swift's music is not for me. I'm not a female who goes through breakup problems every year. The music's just not for me, so I don't listen to it. Now, this isn't my answer, but I did go through a Sabrina Carpenter phase where the music's not for me, so I don't listen to it. It's not saved in a playlist anywhere, but she has some bangers, but the music's not for me. Like, Man-Child's great. Please, Please, Please is a great song. She just released a new one that has Maddie Klein in the music video. I don't remember the name of the song. It's a pretty good song. But that's not in a playlist, right? Because it's not for me. I need y'all to understand. When I make playlists, I don't just... So, a lot of people make playlists based on vibes or moods. I don't. My playlists are pretty simple. And I only got 3 playlists. I have a country... Well, 4. I have a country playlist. Literally is just titled Country. And it's all the country songs that I have ever liked in the existence of human existence, of my existence. I have a Christian hip hop playlist. I know those things sound contradictory. It exists, and some of it is a banger. And I only put the bangers that I like in my playlist, right? I don't listen to a lot of normal rap to create a playlist for it, but I do like this stuff. And then I have like I don't listen to a lot of secular music outside of country. So then I have a Christian playlist that never gets played. Unless like my mom's in the car, right? I'm about to go to a concert with my mom on Saturday. We'll probably listen to that on the way to the concert. Just to be genuine. That's the music she likes. So we'll listen to it. Genuinely, I only listen to and then my 4th one is, I got so tired of listening to bro country, and I really wanted the like 80s, 90s sound back. And so I found a few artists, and I separated them and made a playlist called Making Country Great Again. Or Making Country Country Again, I think is what I titled it. And so, but it's essentially country music. So, all that to say, the most embarrassing song probably would be the fact that Ella Langley is my favorite artist right now. And her music's genuinely not for me, but I'll jam out to Be Her or Choosing Texas or any of that new album she just created. I'm not embarrassed to jam to Ella Langley. I'm an Ella fella all day. And that's probably the cringiest thing I've said this episode. But I'm taking donations so that I can go to the concert in July. Consider it a birthday present. It's the week before my birthday, so hit me up for the Cash App. Yeah, I don't listen to embarrassing. Like, you're never gonna catch me listening to Taylor Swift. I don't care about her music. Don't care about Olivia Rodrigo's music. Maybe every now and then I'll put on a Sabrina Carpenter song, but I think a lot of people understand that if Man-Child's on, or if Please, Please, Please is on, it's not for me, but they're still bops, right? But most of my music are country music that I listen to that, the men are singing, I'm the target audience, and I'm not embarrassed to listen to it. So it's I'm not the type of person that has like a guilty pleasure song. I don't. I'm just going to be honest with you. My mood changes all the time. I have like 3 artists I listen to. Like I can name the 3 artists that are probably going to be the top of my, at the end of the year. We still have 7-8 months left in the year. Yeah, about 7 months left before Apple, Rewind or Spotify. I forgot what Spotify's calls theirs, where they tell you like what you listen to the most. We still got about 7 months before that comes out, right? And I can already tell you what I believe the top three artists on mine are probably going to be. And look, follow up with me when Rewind comes out. Probably going to be Drake Mulligan, Randall King, Bryce Leatherwood. Let me make sure I'm going to lock those three in. Yeah, I'll lock those three in. Those are my top three artists those are like the only three artists that I consistently listen to. Well, I'll take that back. Ella Langley's probably going to beat one of them just because I've listened to her album a lot. So it'll probably be Ella Langley, Randall King, and Bryce Leatherwood. Bryce Leatherwood, Randall King, Ella Langley, and fourth, who may have a chance to get into the top three, will be Drake Mulligan. But those are going to be that's what I listen to. There's nothing like embarrassing in my playlist. Well, I'll say this: I have an album saved to my phone, but it's like a comedy album. It's called from a comedy band named OCT or On Company Time, and they have some crazy songs. But I don't listen to that. Again, it's not in a playlist. And I don't make playlists the way people make playlists. A lot of people make just one big playlist, or they make playlists based on their moods. I don't do that. Like, I separate by genre, and I only listen to like 4 artists. I'm really weird with that, but yeah, that's just how it is. So, that's how we'll end this episode. So thanks for the questions, Kara. I was able to squander up an hour conversation because of it. Kara is the producer of this episode. She will get the credit she deserves. Thank you for that. And so, everyone, thank you for listening to the Slap and Meat Community Show. Remember, every Fan Friday, we're Fan Question Friday. I answer y'all questions, but I need questions. So, B-Master, all of you guys in there, send your questions. It could be literally anything. Literally anything. And we'll discuss it. With that being said, thank you all for listening. I will see you all next Tuesday with more wrestling news, probably a Backlash breakdown. But until then, I will see you on the next episode.
So hit that subscribe, come along for the ride, whether it's NXT or NFL time. Going in the ropes and forth and deep, slapping meat community every Tuesday. Go